I'm Lourdes, 29 years old, daughter of Chicago's successful real estate power couple. While my parents built empires, I built young minds as a kindergarten teacher, becoming the family disappointment. When I sent my wedding invitation, my father called it a trivial event for someone at your level, choosing a Hawaii vacation with my sister's perfect family instead. 1 week after I returned from my honeymoon, Dad called about missed loan payments. My response: don't contact me about trivial matters. Before I dive into this painful journey, let me know where you're watching from. In the comments, hit that like button, and subscribe to follow how I finally stood up for myself after years of emotional neglect. Growing up in Highland Park, one of Chicago's wealthiest suburbs, my childhood looked perfect from the outside. Our 6-bedroom colonial with its manicured gardens and indoor pool was featured twice in luxury home magazines. My father, Marcus, built his real estate development company from scratch, turning it into a multi-million-dollar business with properties across 3 states. My mother, Sophia, managed the company finances, while maintaining her status as one of Chicago's premier socialites, sitting on the boards of 4 major charities, and hosting fundraisers that were always mentioned in the society pages. From my earliest memories, the expectation of excellence permeated our home like expensive perfume. My father demanded perfection in everything from grades to table manners to extracurricular achievements. A 98% on a test would earn not congratulations, but questions about the missing 2%. Mother was more subtle, but equally demanding, constantly comparing us to the children of their social circle, especially those attending prestigious schools or winning notable awards. My sister Amanda, 3 years older than me, fit perfectly into their vision. She was valedictorian of her high school class, graduated summa cum laude from Northwestern, and went on to Harvard Law. She married Jackson, a neurosurgeon from a similarly prestigious family, in a wedding that cost more than most houses. They gave my parents exactly what they wanted: impressive careers, social connections, and eventually 2 perfect grandchildren who were already being groomed for elite preschools. I was different from the beginning. While Amanda competed in debate tournaments and played concert violin, I was drawn to finger painting, storytelling, and playing school with my stuffed animals. I loved learning but wasn't driven by grades or competition. What made me happiest was helping others, especially children. By middle school, I was volunteering at the library reading program and babysitting, not just for money, but because I genuinely enjoyed being with kids. The first major conflict came during my junior year of high school, when college applications loomed. My parents had always assumed I would follow Amanda into business or law. The night I announced my intention to major in elementary education at a small liberal arts college known for its teaching program, rather than prestige, my father actually laughed, thinking I was joking. Education. "You want to be a teacher?" he asked incredulously during dinner, setting down his fork with a sharp clink against fine china. "Why would we spend thousands on your education for you to make $30,000 a year babysitting other people's children?" "It's not babysitting, Dad. It's teaching. It's important work," I argued. Mother sipped her wine and sighed. "Darling, with your grades, you could get into Northwestern's business program. Even Amanda says you have potential. Why settle for mediocrity when you could actually make something of yourself?" That phrase, "make something of yourself," would echo through countless family discussions over the years, the implication always clear: teaching children was nothing. At least nothing worthy of a daughter of Marcus and Sophia Blackwell. Despite their disapproval, I held firm. I applied to 5 schools with strong education programs and was accepted to all of them. I chose Madison College, a well-respected but not Ivy League school that offered me a partial scholarship. My parents attended my high school graduation with tight smiles, making sure to mention to everyone that Amanda was finishing her first year at Harvard Law with honors. My college years brought me peace away from their constant judgment. I thrived in my education classes, finding mentors who valued my empathy and creativity. My roommate Tara became the sister I wished Amanda could be, supportive and kind without competition. When my parents visited campus, which was rare, they seemed almost allergic to the environment, making comments about the modest facilities and questioning the value of my practical teaching courses compared to Amanda's theoretical legal studies. I graduated with honors and immediately found a job teaching kindergarten at an elementary school in a diverse Chicago neighborhood. The salary was indeed modest, but the joy I found in helping 5-year-olds discover reading and develop social skills filled me with purpose. The day I got my own classroom, I took dozens of photos, proudly sharing them on social media. My mother's only comment was to ask if the school had considered updating their dated decor. As I established my teaching career, the emotional distance between me and my family grew. Holiday gatherings became exercises in endurance with endless updates about Amanda's career advancement, her husband's surgical innovations, and later, her children's exceptional developmental milestones. My contributions to conversations about my students' achievements or innovative teaching methods I was implementing were met with polite but disinterested nods before the topic quickly shifted back to Amanda's world. I created a life for myself that included close friendships with fellow teachers, volunteer work at a children's hospital, and eventually, a small but charming condo that I purchased with help from a loan from my father, something he never let me forget. Despite the distance from my family, I was building a life that felt authentic and meaningful. What I didn't realize was that the true breaking point in our relationship was still to come. I met James on a rainy Saturday in April at a community center where I volunteered monthly for a program providing enrichment activities for underprivileged children. He was there with his firefighter crew teaching fire safety through interactive demonstrations that had the kids completely captivated. At 30, James had the kind of easy confidence that comes from knowing exactly who you are and what you value. His gentle way with the children immediately caught my attention, as did his infectious laugh and the genuine interest he showed when asking about my teaching career. Unlike the ambitious, status-conscious men my parents had occasionally tried to set me up with, James came from a solidly middle-class family in suburban Chicago. His father worked 40 years as an electrician, his mother as a nurse at a community hospital. He had followed his childhood dream of becoming a firefighter, completing paramedic training, and working his way up to lieutenant at his firehouse. The pride he took in his work was evident whenever he spoke about his team or the community they served. Our first date was at a casual pizza place where we talked for hours about our shared love of community service and our close relationships with our respective students and the kids he met through the department's outreach programs. James didn't ask about my family background or seem impressed when I eventually mentioned it. Instead, he wanted to know about my classroom management techniques and my favorite children's books to read aloud. After 6 months of dating, I knew I needed to introduce James to my parents. I arranged a dinner at an upscale restaurant, hoping the public setting might temper their reactions. My mother arrived in designer clothes that cost more than my monthly salary, immediately assessing James with the same critical eye she used when evaluating potential investment properties. "Firefighting," she said with a thin smile after introductions. "How dangerous. And the schedules are so irregular, aren't they? How does that work for having a normal social life?" Before James could answer, my father interjected. "What's the growth trajectory in that field? Do you have plans to move into administration or perhaps private sector safety consulting? There must be more lucrative applications for your experience." James handled their interrogation with grace, explaining his passion for public service and the fulfillment he found in his career. "I don't measure success by my bank account or title," he said. "I measure it by the lives I've impacted and the community I've served." The slight narrowing of my father's eyes told me this was exactly the wrong answer in his world. The rest of the evening proceeded with superficial pleasantness, masking their obvious disapproval. As we left, my mother whispered, "He seems nice, dear, but really with your background you could attract someone with more potential." The contrast between this reception and my introduction to James's family couldn't have been starker. His parents, Thomas and Marie, welcomed me with genuine warmth to their modest but cozy home. Marie had prepared a homemade meal and asked thoughtful questions about my teaching, showing real interest in my stories about my students. Thomas proudly showed me James's childhood photos and treated me like family from the first meeting. Our relationship deepened despite my parents' lack of enthusiasm. James understood my passion for teaching because he shared a similar dedication to service. We spent weekends exploring Chicago's neighborhoods, volunteering together, and enjoying simple pleasures like cooking dinner and watching movies at home activities my status-conscious family would consider mundane. When Amanda's husband Jackson received a prestigious medical award, my parents threw an elaborate celebration dinner and spent the evening discussing their European vacation plans and the private preschool where Amanda's children were already waitlisted. James squeezed my hand under the table when my mother remarked, "It's such a comfort knowing Amanda's children will have every advantage in life." 11 months after we met, James proposed in my kindergarten classroom after school hours. He had arranged with my teaching assistant to set up a scavenger hunt leading to him waiting with a simple but beautiful solitaire ring that had belonged to his grandmother. It wasn't the grand gesture at an exclusive restaurant that would have impressed my parents, but it was perfectly us surrounded by the fingerprint art and alphabet charts that represented my life's work. My happiness was clouded only by the knowledge that my parents would not share in my joy. Still, I hoped that perhaps my engagement might finally help them see that I had found happiness on my own terms. I decided to tell them at their regular Sunday dinner, bringing James for moral support. "We're engaged," I announced after the main course, showing my grandmother's ring. The silence that followed felt endless. My father finally spoke, his voice businesslike. "I hope you're not expecting us to fund this mistake. We've already paid for one wedding, and that was for a match that made sense." My mother glanced at my ring and winced slightly. "Oh, darling, is that the final ring? Perhaps we could help upgrade to something more suitable before you start showing people." Amanda, who was also present with Jackson, offered a tight smile. "It's very sweet, very simple. Will you be having a long engagement? There's really so much to plan if you want to do things properly." James maintained his composure, though I could see the muscle in his jaw tighten. "We're thinking of a spring wedding, nothing extravagant. What matters to us is celebrating our commitment with people who support our relationship." The pointed comment went unacknowledged, as my father changed the subject to a new commercial property he was developing. Later that night, as James drove us home, he suggested gently, "We can plan a wedding we can afford without their help. Something small but meaningful, that reflects who we are." I nodded, fighting back tears. I thought maybe this would be the moment they'd finally accept my choices. "Their approval isn't what matters," James said, taking my hand. "We're building our life together based on love and respect, not image or status." I knew he was right, but still held on to a sliver of hope that even if my parents wouldn't financially support our wedding, they might still show up emotionally. It was a hope that would prove devastating in the months to come. With no financial support from my family, James and I planned a wedding that reflected our values and budget. We booked the Lakeside Community Center for both ceremony and reception, a bright space with large windows overlooking a small lake. My fellow teachers formed a decoration committee planning simple but elegant centerpieces made from books and flowers. James's firefighter friends volunteered to set up chairs and tables the morning of the wedding. "It won't be the Four Seasons like Amanda's wedding," I told James, "but it'll be ours." He kissed my forehead and replied, "That makes it perfect." 3 months before the wedding, I drove to my parents' house to personally deliver their invitations. I'd spent hours selecting the wording and design, hoping the traditional format might appeal to my mother's sense of propriety. I rang the doorbell of the house I'd grown up in, feeling strangely like a visitor. My mother answered, surprised to see me without a prior appointment. "Lourdes, we weren't expecting you. Is everything all right?" "Everything's fine," I said, handing her the cream envelope. "I wanted to deliver your invitation personally. The wedding's on May 15th. She opened it at the foyer table, examining the card with the critical eye she usually reserved for real estate listings. "Community Center. Oh, darling. You know the Highland Club still has availability most Sundays. I'm sure your father could make a call. We've already put down our deposit, Mom. It's what we want." She sighed, placing the invitation beside a crystal vase filled with fresh flowers that probably cost more than our entire flower budget. "Well, it's your day, I suppose. Though I do wonder what I'll tell the Andersons and the Mitchells when they ask about it. They're still talking about Amanda's wedding 4 years later." My father appeared from his home office, barely glancing at the invitation. May 15th. That's the weekend before the Chicago Development Conference. Bad timing, Lourdes. The date is set, Dad. We've already confirmed with all our vendors. He shrugged. Just an observation. These community center weddings, they're what? 4-hour blocks? In and out like a fast food restaurant? He chuckled at his own joke. I left their house fighting tears, the excitement of delivering invitations completely deflated. James was waiting in the car and took one look at my face before pulling me into a hug. They're not going to be happy no matter what we do, I said into his shoulder. Maybe we should just elope. No way, James said firmly. We're having our wedding our way. If they can't appreciate it, that's their loss. The following weeks brought more disappointments. My mother canceled our dress shopping appointment 3 times each with a different excuse. The third time she suggested, "Why don't you just have Amanda help you? She has such excellent taste and she's already offered to lend her expertise." The thought of my sister's expertise made me cringe. The one time Amanda and I had discussed wedding plans, she had scrolled through my Pinterest board and commented, "Oh Lourdes, this is all so quaint. Are you sure you want your wedding to look homemade?" I ended up going dress shopping alone, finding a beautiful secondhand gown at a consignment shop. The vintage lace and simple silhouette suited me perfectly, and the price fit our budget. When I sent my mother a photo, her response was a single line. "Interesting choice. Have you considered having it altered to look more current?" 2 weeks before the wedding, I called my parents to confirm they'd be attending since they hadn't yet RSVP'd. "Oh, I'm not sure we can make it," my father said casually, as if discussing a casual acquaintance's birthday party. "I have a business trip that weekend. Very important potential investors." "But Dad, it's my wedding. Can't you reschedule?" "The business doesn't reschedule for personal events, Lourdes. You know that." My mother was equally vague when I called her separately. "I need to check my calendar, darling. We have so many commitments this spring. And if your father's traveling, I should probably accompany him. Appearances, you know." My final dress fitting was the following week. James's mother, Marie, came with me instead of my own mother, tearing up as I tried on the finished gown. "You look beautiful, Lourdes," she said, adjusting my veil. "James won't be able to take his eyes off you." I blinked back tears. "Thank you for being here." "I wouldn't miss it for the world," she replied, squeezing my hand. The simple statement made my parents' absence even more painful. 7 days before the wedding, I received the RSVP card from my parents in the mail. The regretfully declined box was checked with no personal note. I called immediately, my hands shaking with anger and hurt. "You're really not coming?" I demanded when my father answered. "Lourdes, as I explained, we have prior commitments. I'm sure it will be a lovely event, but frankly, it's a trivial matter compared to what's on our plate right now." "Trivial? My wedding is trivial." "For someone at your level, yes," he said coolly. When Amanda married, it was a significant social and professional networking opportunity given their positions. Your teacher and firefighter gathering is hardly the same caliber of event. The words stung like a physical slap. And Mom, she's missing my wedding for what exactly? "We've planned a family trip to Hawaii. Your sister and her family are joining us. It's been on the calendar for months." This was the first I'd heard of any Hawaii trip. You planned a family vacation without including me deliberately during my wedding. "Don't be dramatic, Lourdes. You're busy with your wedding. Besides, Jackson has that medical conference in Honolulu, and we decided to make a family event of it." A family event that excluded me. The message couldn't have been clearer. When I hung up, I broke down in tears. James found me curled on our couch wedding seating chart scattered across the coffee table. "They're not coming," I sobbed. "My dad called our wedding trivial and said they're taking Amanda and her family to Hawaii instead." James sat beside me, his face flushed with anger. "That's beyond hurtful, Lourdes. It's cruel." "What kind of parents miss their daughter's wedding?" I asked through tears. "The kind who don't deserve you," James answered, holding me tight. "We're going to have a beautiful wedding surrounded by people who truly care about us. That's what matters." I nodded against his chest, trying to believe it. The final week of wedding preparations passed in a blur of emotion, joy, and excitement, mingled with the deep ache of my family's rejection. Every time someone asked if my parents were looking forward to the wedding, I forced a smile and changed the subject. Unable to admit even to myself how completely they had abandoned me on what should have been one of the happiest days of my life. I woke up on my wedding day with a hollow feeling in my chest, despite the excitement fluttering in my stomach. Tara, my maid of honor and former college roommate, arrived early with coffee and pastries, filling the hotel room with cheerful chatter as she helped me get ready. James's mother, Marie, joined us shortly after, bringing the hairstylist who had done her own hair for years and had offered her services as a wedding gift. "Something borrowed," Marie said, fastening her pearl earrings to my ears. "These were my mother's, and I wore them at my wedding, too." The simple kindness brought tears to my eyes. "Thank you for being here," I said, unable to express how much her presence meant in the absence of my own mother. "Wouldn't miss it for anything in the world," she repeated, the same words she'd said at my fitting, words my own mother should have been saying. The ceremony was scheduled for 2:00. By noon, my bridesmaids and I were dressed and taking photos in the community center garden. The photographer, a friend of James from the fire department who did wedding photography as a side business, kept things light and fun. Yet, I couldn't help noticing how, in every group photo, the space where my family should have been remained conspicuously empty. "Should we call your sister one more time?" Tara asked gently, as we waited in the small room off the main hall. "Maybe they changed their plans." I shook my head, checking my phone one last time. No messages from my parents or Amanda. "They made their choice," I said, putting on a brave smile. "Let's make ours a day to remember." James's father, Thomas, approached me minutes before the ceremony. "Lords, I know I'm not your father, but I'd be honored to walk you down the aisle if you'd like." The offer nearly broke my composure. "Thank you, Thomas, but I think I need to do this on my own. It's how I've done most things in my life anyway." He nodded in understanding, squeezing my hand. "You're already part of our family, you know that, right?" Those words carried me down the aisle alone, my head held high, despite the whispers I knew were circulating about my parents' absence. James waited at the altar, his eyes filling with tears when he saw me, his smile so full of love that for a moment nothing else mattered. Our vows were personal and heartfelt. I promised to build a home where love and acceptance were never conditional, my voice catching only slightly on the words. James vowed to stand beside me through every joy and sorrow, to be the family I deserved. When we were pronounced husband and wife, the cheers from our friends echoed through the hall momentarily, drowning out the silence from my side of the family. The reception was beautiful in its simplicity. Fairy lights twinkled above tables decorated with books and wildflowers. A table near the front, reserved with my parents' and sisters' names, remained empty throughout the evening. A visual reminder of their absence that I couldn't help glancing at occasionally, despite my best efforts to ignore it. During the toast, Tara stood with her glass raised. "Some people are missing today. Who should be here?" she said, her eyes meeting mine with fierce loyalty. "But look around this room. It's filled with people who love Lourdes and James for exactly who they are, who celebrate their choices and their values. In the end, that's the only kind of family that truly matters." James and I danced our first dance to a song about building something beautiful together. His parents joined us for the second dance, his mother embracing me with tears in her eyes. "Welcome to the family officially," she whispered. Despite the joy surrounding us, I couldn't completely shake the sadness. After cutting the cake, I slipped away to the restroom for a moment alone, checking my phone one last time. Still, no message from my parents, but a notification caught my eye my mother had posted on Instagram. With shaking hands, I opened the app to see photos of my parents, Amanda Jackson, and their children on a Hawaiian beach, cocktails in hand, sunsets in the background. The timestamp showed they had been posted during the exact hours of my ceremony. The caption read, "Nothing better than quality time with family that matters. Number. Blessed number. Family first number. Making memories. Family that matters." The words felt like a knife to my heart. The carefully posed photos showed my mother in an expensive resort dress, my father in linen pants and a designer shirt, Amanda and her family coordinated in white and blue. They were all smiling, toasting with tropical drinks garnished with paper umbrellas and fresh fruit. A knock on the bathroom door startled me. "Lords, are you okay in there?" James's voice was concerned. I quickly wiped my tears and opened the door, showing him my phone. "Look what my mother posted. During our ceremony." James's face darkened as he scrolled through the images. "This was deliberate," he said quietly. "They wanted you to see this." I nodded, fresh tears threatening. "They're making it crystal clear where I stand in the family hierarchy." James pulled me into his arms. "Their loss," he said firmly. "Completely their loss." I took a deep breath and fixed my makeup. "You're right. I won't let them ruin today. This is our day." We returned to the reception, where our friends cheered our entrance. I danced and laughed and cut cake, pushing thoughts of Hawaii and family that matters to the back of my mind. When we left that night, amid sparklers and well wishes, I felt a complex mixture of joy and sorrow, the happiness of beginning my life with James tinged with the grief of what my family had chosen to throw away. Our honeymoon was a 4-day stay at a modest beach rental, a few hours' drive from Chicago, nothing like the luxury resorts my parents frequented, but perfect for us. We swam and walked on the beach and made love and talked about our future, including the painful decision about what role, if any, my family would play in it. I keep checking my phone, thinking maybe they'll call or text, I admitted on our second night. Curled against James on the small deck overlooking the water. Some kind of acknowledgement, even if it's late. James stroked my hair. "Whatever you decide about your relationship with them going forward, I'll support you. But Lourdes, you deserve so much better than what they've given you." I nodded, watching the waves in the moonlight. "I know. I think I've always known. I just kept hoping they'd change." When we returned home, there was still no word from my family. Instead, my mother posted more Hawaii photos, including one with the caption, "Extended our stay another week. When you're with the people who matter most, who wants to leave paradise number family goals?" Each new post felt like a deliberate reminder of my exclusion from their charmed circle. James suggested I unfollow them on social media. But something in me couldn't look away, like pressing on a bruise to feel the pain. It was 1 week after our return, while scrolling through yet another round of my mother's vacation posts, that my father finally called. 3 years before I met James, when I was still trying desperately to win my parents' approval, I had purchased a small condo in a decent Chicago neighborhood. The down payment came from my savings, but the housing market was expensive and my teacher's salary didn't qualify me for the mortgage I needed. My father had offered a loan for 30% of the purchase price, presenting it as a generous gesture but structuring it like any other business deal with a formal contract, interest payments, and strict terms. "I'm not running a charity here," he had said as I signed the papers. "This is a business arrangement and I expect you to honor it like one." Every month for 3 years, I had made the payments automatically from my bank account to his never missing one despite my tight budget. I ate ramen noodles for dinner when necessary, and took on summer school teaching for extra income, determined to prove I was responsible, and would never give him reason to criticize my financial decisions. When my phone rang 1 week after returning from our honeymoon, my father's name appearing on the screen, I felt a momentary surge of hope. Perhaps this was the olive branch, the belated acknowledgement of my marriage. "Hello, Dad," I answered, trying to keep my voice neutral. "Lourdes?" He responded, his tone businesslike and cold, with no mention of the wedding or any inquiry about my well-being. "I'm calling about the loan payments." My stomach dropped. "Not a reconciliation call, then. What about them?" "They haven't been made for the past 2 months. This is unacceptable. We had an agreement." I frowned in confusion. "That's not possible. The payments are automated through my bank. They go out on the 1st of every month." "Well, they haven't been received," he said, impatience evident in his voice. "This is exactly the kind of financial irresponsibility I worried about when you insisted on that teaching career. You can't even manage basic financial obligations." The familiar criticism stung, but the accusation made no sense. "Let me check my bank records. I'll call you right back." I hung up and immediately logged into my online banking. The records confirmed what I already knew: the payments had been deducted from my account as scheduled. I called my bank, who confirmed the transfers had been initiated but returned with a notice that the receiving account was closed or unavailable. When I called my father back, he answered on the first ring as if waiting for my call. Well, the payments were sent, Dad. They were returned because your account was closed or changed. If you changed your banking information, you never told me. There was a pause, then a dismissive huff. I restructured some accounts last quarter. You should have called when the payments didn't go through to get the new information. This is basic financial management, Lords. The audacity was breathtaking. How would I know they didn't go through if you didn't tell me? And you changed accounts without notifying me. But somehow that's my fault. I shouldn't have to handhold you through every step of adult responsibilities, he replied. I expected you to be monitoring these transactions. That's what responsible adults do. The hypocrisy of his lecture hit me all at once. This man who couldn't be bothered to attend his daughter's wedding, who posted vacation photos during my ceremony, was lecturing me about responsibility. The man who had chosen a Hawaiian beach over walking me down the aisle was questioning my adult behavior. Years of seeking approval, of accepting criticism, of making myself smaller to fit into their narrow definition of success, suddenly crystallized into perfect clarity. I remembered countless childhood moments when my achievements were dismissed because they didn't match their expectations. Piano recitals they missed because Amanda had a more important event. School plays where I searched the audience for their faces only to learn later they had attended a business dinner instead. The pattern was clear. Their love, their attention, their respect had always been conditional, and I would never be able to meet those conditions while remaining true to myself. Don't contact me about trivial matters, I said, my voice steady and clear. Excuse me, my father's shock was evident. You heard me. A $30,000 loan is trivial, isn't it? Certainly compared to a daughter's wedding. You made it very clear where I stand in your list of priorities. So don't call me about money when you couldn't be bothered to show up for the most important day of my life. Now you listen here, he began, his voice rising with anger. You don't speak to me that way. This loan was a professional courtesy and I expect professional behavior. Your wedding was your choice, a little community center affair that frankly would have been embarrassing to attend. Amanda's wedding was a different matter entirely. Because Amanda matters and I don't. You've made that abundantly clear. My voice remained calm despite the tears rolling down my cheeks. I'll have the loan refinanced through my bank by the end of the month. You'll get your money back in full, and then we'll be done with this trivial business matter. Lords, you're being childish and emotional. This is exactly why you've never succeeded in life. You let feelings cloud your judgment instead of thinking practically like your sister. Goodbye, Dad, I said, and ended the call. I sat in silence for several minutes, my phone clutched in my hand, waiting for the regret or fear to set in. Instead, I felt an unexpected sense of peace, as if I'd finally put down a heavy burden I'd been carrying my entire life. When James came home from his shift an hour later, he found me sitting calmly at our kitchen table with spreadsheets and loan information spread before me. Everything okay? He asked cautiously, noticing my red eyes but calm demeanor. My father called about the loan payments, I explained, telling him about the changed account and the confrontation that followed. I told him not to contact me about trivial matters and that I'd refinance the loan. James sat beside me, concern in his eyes. That's a big step. Are you sure? I nodded. I've spent my whole life trying to earn their approval, their love. I'm done. If they can't love me for who I am, accept the life I've chosen, and the man I love, then I need to stop hoping they'll change. What about financially? Can we manage the refinance? I showed him the numbers I'd worked out. It'll be tight for a while. We might need to postpone some of our plans for trips or home improvements. But we can do it, and the freedom from that financial connection to my father will be worth it. James took my hand. Then we'll make it work, together. The next day, I went to my bank and applied for a conventional mortgage to pay off my father's loan. The interest rate was higher and we had to provide additional documentation, since I'd recently changed my name after marriage, but within 2 weeks we were approved. I sent my father a cashier's check for the full amount plus interest with a simple note, loan repaid in full. All financial obligations concluded. He never acknowledged receiving it. The fallout from my confrontation with my father was swift and predictable. My mother sent a series of increasingly agitated text messages, demanding I apologize for my disrespect and ingratitude. Your father has done nothing but try to help you succeed, she wrote. This temper tantrum over a simple business matter is beneath you. I didn't respond, which only escalated her messages. Family should come before pride, lords. Call your father and make this right. When I continued my silence, Amanda called, her tone dripping with condescension. What is wrong with you? Do you have any idea how upset Dad is? He's done everything for you, supported you even when you chose that mediocre career, and this is how you repay him. He didn't come to my wedding, Amanda, I replied calmly. Neither did you. You all went to Hawaii instead and made sure I saw the photos during my ceremony. Don't talk to me about family loyalty. That trip was planned months in advance. We couldn't just cancel because you decided to rush into marriage with a firefighter. Besides, it's not like it was a significant social event. It was significant to me. And James is my husband, not just a firefighter. If you can't respect that, we have nothing more to discuss. She scoffed. You know, you've always had a flair for drama. When you're ready to grow up and stop this childish behavior, maybe we can talk. I ended the call and blocked her number 2. The flying monkeys descended next. My mother's sister called to tell me how heartbroken my parents were. My father's business partner's wife emailed about family harmony and respecting your elders. Each message reinforced my decision to maintain boundaries, showing me how my parents were spinning the narrative to make themselves the victims. Through it all, James remained my steadfast support. You don't owe them an apology, he assured me when I questioned myself in weak moments. They owed you basic parental support and respect, and they failed spectacularly. His family embraced me completely, including me in Sunday dinners and family celebrations, without the constant evaluation and judgment I'd grown up with. The contrast only highlighted how toxic my own family dynamic had been. As summer turned to fall, we received a formal invitation to Thanksgiving dinner at my parents' house. The card in my mother's elegant handwriting included a note. We expect you to have moved past this childish behavior by now. Family should be together for the holidays. No apology, no acknowledgement of their absence at our wedding, just the expectation that I would fall back in line. I declined with a brief response. We have other plans. Happy Thanksgiving. We spent the holiday with James's family, helping his mother cook and playing board games afterward. For Christmas, my parents sent expensive gifts which we returned unopened with a note echoing my father's words. Don't trouble yourselves with trivial matters. My father's response was to escalate, threatening to contact my school principal about my emotional instability and concerning behavior. When that didn't provoke a response, my mother showed up unannounced at my classroom after school one day in January. This has gone on long enough, she said, closing my classroom door behind her. Your father is furious, and frankly, so am I. This ridiculous grudge over a simple miscommunication about banking details has to stop. This isn't about the loan, Mom, I said, continuing to organize materials for the next day. It's about a lifetime of conditional love and approval. It's about you choosing a vacation over your daughter's wedding, and then posting photos during the ceremony to make sure I saw them. That's absurd. We posted those photos for friends, not to hurt you. And that trip was planned around Jackson's medical conference. You know that. Was his conference scheduled exactly during my ceremony? Did you have to post those specific photos at that specific time, with captions about family that matters? Please don't insult my intelligence. Her composure cracked slightly. What do you want from us, lords? An apology. Fine, I'm sorry we missed your little wedding. Is that enough? Can we move past this now? The dismissive apology only confirmed what I already knew. It's not about the wedding anymore, Mom. It's about respect. You and Dad have never respected my choices, my career, my husband, or me. Until that changes fundamentally, we don't have anything to discuss. So that's it. You're throwing away your family over hurt feelings. I'm protecting my peace and my marriage from people who have consistently shown they don't value either. The ball is in your court. When you're ready to treat me with genuine respect and acknowledge the hurt you've caused, we can talk about rebuilding a relationship. She left in tears, but they were tears of frustration, not remorse. The next day, Amanda sent a scathing email accusing me of destroying the family with my selfish demands for attention. She claimed I had always been jealous of her success and was punishing our parents for recognizing her superior achievements. The email was so detached from reality that it almost made me laugh. What was more concerning was learning through mutual acquaintances that my parents were telling family members I was suffering from mental health issues, painting themselves as concerned parents dealing with an unstable daughter rather than admitting their own failures. This campaign of misinformation worked with many extended family members who began sending me links to therapists and wellness retreats, clearly believing I was having some sort of breakdown. The isolation from my extended family was painful, but clarifying, showing me how deeply my parents' influence extended. Through these difficult months, James and I focused on building our life together. He received a promotion at the fire department, and we celebrated with a small dinner party for his colleagues and our close friends. I continued teaching, finding joy in my students' progress, and the supportive community of fellow educators. In March, 7 months after our wedding, I discovered I was pregnant. The joy of this news was complicated by the family estrangement. Edison. Would my child grow up without grandparents on my side? Was I depriving them of family relationships out of pride? After much reflection and discussion with James, I wrote my parents a letter. Not an olive branch exactly, but a clear statement of boundaries and conditions for moving forward. I am expecting your first grandchild in November. This should be a time of family unity and support, but that can only happen with acknowledgement of past hurt and commitment to respectful relationships moving forward. If you wish to be part of this child's life, these are my non-negotiable boundaries. 1. Respect for my marriage and my husband. No more dismissive comments about James's career or our life choices. 2. Acknowledgement of the hurt caused by missing our wedding and the subsequent handling of that decision. 3. No more comparisons to Amanda or using her family as the standard against which mine is measured. 4. Commitment to treating me and my family with the same respect and consideration you give to Amanda and hers. I am open to rebuilding our relationship on these terms. The choice is yours. I mailed the letter and waited. Weeks passed with no response, a silence that spoke volumes about their priorities and their inability to consider any perspective but their own. As my pregnancy progressed, I grieved not just for the supportive parents I had never had, but for the grandparent relationship my child might never experience. Our daughter was born on a crisp November morning, 7 pounds, 6 ounces of perfection with James's dark hair, and what the nurses swore were my eyes. We named her Sophia, after my mother, a choice that surprised even me. Despite everything, I wanted to leave the door open for reconciliation, and the name felt like a small bridge extending across the chasm between us. The hospital room filled with flowers from my teaching colleagues and James's firefighter family. His parents arrived within hours, Thomas's eyes filling with tears as he held his first grandchild. Marie brought tiny hand-knitted booties and a blanket she had been working on since we announced the pregnancy. "She's perfect," Marie whispered, gently touching Sophia's tiny fingers. "Absolutely perfect." The absence of my own parents was a quiet ache beneath the joy, an empty space where congratulatory calls and proud grandparent visits should have been. I had sent a birth announcement with a photo but received no response. 3 days after we brought Sophia home, a delivery arrived, an elaborate flower arrangement with a card in my mother's handwriting. "Congratulations on baby Sophia. Would like to meet her when convenient. Mom." No mention of my father, no acknowledgement of the name choice, but it was the first contact in months. I showed James the card, uncertain how to respond. "It's your call," he said. "Whatever you decide, I'll support you." After careful consideration, I texted my mother suggesting coffee the following week at a cafe near our home. She agreed immediately. The meeting was awkward at first. My mother arrived overdressed as usual, looking out of place among the young parents with strollers and college students with laptops. She brought an expensive baby outfit, the price tag still visible when I unwrapped it. "She's lovely," my mother said, peering at Sophia sleeping in her carrier. "She has the Blackwell nose, I think." "Thank you for coming," I said. and for the flowers." She nodded, adjusting her designer watch. I was surprised by the name choice. "Despite everything, you're still her grandmother." The name felt right. We sipped our coffee in silence for a moment before she spoke again. "Your father is still very hurt by your behavior." I had expected this, the attempt to shift responsibility. "And I'm still hurt by his. By both of yours. Lord's families have disagreements, but cutting us off over a missed event and some banking confusion is extreme. It wasn't just an event, Mom, it was my wedding. And it wasn't about the loan itself, but what it represented: conditional love and respect based on whether I meet your and Dad's standards of success." She sighed. "We've always wanted what's best for you." "No, you've wanted what you think is best. There's a difference." I took a deep breath. I meant what I wrote in my letter. "I'm open to rebuilding our relationship, but only with clear boundaries and mutual respect. And if your father isn't ready for that, then I'm sorry, but nothing changes. Sophia deserves to be surrounded by people who value and respect her parents. I won't expose her to the kind of conditional approval I grew up with." My mother nodded slowly. "I'll talk to him. That's all I can promise." It was a small step, but more than I had expected. As Christmas approached, we received a tentative invitation to dinner at my parents' house. After discussion with James, we counter-offered to host them at our home instead, wanting the security of our own space for this tentative reconnection. To my surprise, they accepted. My father arrived stiffly, bearing expensive gifts for Sophia, but barely making eye contact with James or me. My mother made awkward attempts at conversation, commenting on our cozy home in a way that wasn't quite an insult but definitely wasn't a compliment. The tension eased slightly when my father held Sophia for the first time. Something in his expression softened. As she gripped his finger with her tiny hand, a momentary glimpse of the grandfather he could be, if he chose to let go of his rigid expectations. The relationship remained fragile and limited. We established a pattern of monthly visits, always on our terms and in our space. My father never directly apologized for missing the wedding, but he stopped making dismissive comments about James's career. My mother occasionally slipped into comparisons with Amanda's children, but caught herself more often than not. The most surprising development came from Amanda herself. 6 months after Sophia's birth, she reached out asking to meet her niece. During that visit, sitting in our living room watching her children play with Sophia, she admitted something I never expected to hear. "I always envied your courage," she said quietly. "Following your own path instead of the one laid out for you. I never had that bravery." "You seemed perfectly happy with your choices," I replied, genuinely surprised. She shrugged. "Some days, other days I wonder who I'd be if I'd chosen for myself instead of for their approval." She glanced at her perfectly behaved children. "Don't get me wrong, I love my family. But sometimes I look at you and James, how authentically you live, and I wonder." It wasn't an apology for her role in the wedding situation, but it was an acknowledgement that the path of parental approval had its own costs. We didn't become close friends, but we developed a more honest relationship than we'd ever had growing up. As Sophia's first birthday approached, we planned a small celebration at our home and extended invitations to both sides of the family. My parents attended, still somewhat uncomfortable but making visible efforts. My father brought a savings bond for Sophia's education. My mother helped serve cake-making, stilted small talk with James's relatives. During a quiet moment on the patio, my father said, "She has your determination. That stubborn look when she's trying to stack blocks higher than they should go." "I didn't know you noticed that about me as a child," I replied. He cleared his throat. "I noticed more than you think. I just didn't always know how to show it." It wasn't the sweeping reconciliation of movie endings. There were still awkward silences and occasional thoughtless comments. The deep wounds of lifetime patterns don't heal overnight. But there were also small moments of genuine connection, tiny bridges being built across the chasm, one careful plank at a time. The greatest healing, though, came not from their changed behavior, but from my own inner journey. Through therapy and reflection, I came to understand that setting boundaries wasn't about punishing my parents, but about honoring myself. The love and acceptance I had sought from them could only truly come from within. James and his family showed me what unconditional love looked like in practice. My daughter taught me the fierce protectiveness that would never allow her to experience the conditional approval I had grown up with. My teaching colleagues and friends demonstrated that family could be chosen built on mutual respect rather than obligation. The journey from that devastating wedding day to finding peace wasn't straightforward or easy. There were moments of doubt days when the hurt felt fresh again, times when I questioned whether maintaining boundaries was worth the ongoing pain of limited family connection. But with each day that I lived authentically, each moment I spent with people who valued me for exactly who I was, the need for my parents' approval diminished. I stopped measuring my worth by their standards and started recognizing the value in the life I had chosen: meaningful work, a loving marriage, true friendships, and now a beautiful daughter. If you're watching this and struggling with family who can't accept your choices or respect your boundaries, please know your worth isn't determined by their approval. Building a life true to your values isn't selfish or wrong. It's the most honest way to live. Sometimes the family that matters most is the one you create through love and mutual respect, not the one you were born into. Have you ever had to set difficult boundaries with family? What helped you stay strong in your decision? Let me know in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to hear more journeys of finding strength through life's challenges. And remember, you deserve to be valued for exactly who you are, not who someone else wants you to be. Thank you for listening, and I wish you the courage to write your own story of worth and dignity.